Joining us now in the Newsmaker Spotlight, Democratic candidate for governor Chris Kennedy, making a stop in Springfield as the campaign trail inches closer and closer to primary day in March. Thanks so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Well, I have to start by, I guess, asking first of all that in recent days, you've taken a bit of a beating in the press. There have been a couple of articles questioning your campaign, some of the steps that you've made. There was the suggestion that you were praising Governor Bruce Rauner. You spoke about him speaking truth to power in some of his commercials targeting J.B. Pritzker. You did a big event on property taxes in recent days in Chicago, and allegations there were some misstatements made there. So all in all, there's been some conclusion that, to quote one person, this campaign is not ready for prime time. Give us your response to those allegations.
Well, I've been one of Governor Rauner's fiercest critics since he first ran against Pat Quinn. During that time, I campaigned all over the state. I'd say that the fact that he threw 1 million people out of government programs, well, that proves that he's heartless. The fact that he went 2 years without a budget means he's not capable or competent to run the state of Illinois. But when he spoke out against the pay-to-play culture that's developed in our state, he was not wrong. And that pay-to-play culture is part of the Democratic Party. And we'll never get all Democrats to turn out. We'll never get independents to side with us. We'll never get progressive Republicans to support a Democratic agenda unless we clean house and take care of our own party. Getting rid of Governor Rauner is an important first step, but we need to be the party of great government. And in order to do that, we need to be a party free of corruption.
I want to come back to the pay-to-play aspect of this, but let me talk about where you stand now politically in this process. You're in a crowded field. You're up against a very well-financed opponent in J.B. Pritzker. There have been questions about whether you have the money to really be competitive in terms of advertising in TV markets like Chicago. Is this campaign where you want it to be, and is it capable of getting you across the finish line in March?
I'd say it's incredible to be where we are at this time. The fact is, J.B. Pritzker's put $42 million or more into his campaign. We're not sure of the source of those dollars, but they are in the campaign now, and he's bought an awful lot of advertising. It gives the people of the state of Illinois incredible opportunity in March to send a message across the United States and, frankly, to every democracy around the world that money doesn't matter as much as a strong message, that a vote counts more than the ability to write a check. And if we come together as a state, determine our future, we can send a great message that democracies are healthy and are the form of government that people should aspire to all over the world.
Let's talk about that issue of pay-to-play politics. J.B. Pritzker in commercials being run by Governor Bruce Rauner, caught on wiretap conversations with former Governor Rod Blagojevich, talking about political horse trading and things along those lines. You've called him the poster child for corrupt government in the state of Illinois. Can this party come together after the primary when that sort of rhetoric is flying back and forth among the leading contenders to be the next governor?
I think a Democratic primary has always been a clash of ideals. I think that we need to know each other's strengths and weaknesses before we pick a finalist to go up against Governor Rauner in the fall. Believe me, whatever you're hearing now is small in comparison to the very real and very large battery of ads that Governor Rauner is going to run against either one of us, whoever emerges as the victory in the primary. So we need to make sure that we can stand up to the onslaught, and we're starting to see that now.
If J.B. Pritzker wins, will you support him in the general election?
I will. I think it's not really me. It's not really the diehard Democrats that you need to worry about. It's the independents and the progressive Republicans, and it's the Democrats who sporadically vote, and we need them to turn out this year. And the Republican campaign strategy, which they've employed across the country, is very, very strong. They have a 4-part scheme. They convince people of these facts. 1, government's broken. 2, politicians are corrupt. 3, there's nothing you can do about it. 4, don't bother voting. And that voter suppression, That's really effective, and we need to combat that by having a great candidate in the fall.
We're talking with Chris Kennedy, Democratic candidate for governor, part of that crowded field. One of your signature issues now is on property taxes. You've talked a lot about this system, how it can be manipulated, and a lot of that focuses on what happens in Chicago. Obviously, property taxes aren't popular anywhere in the state. My sense is it's not as big an issue or as much front and center downstate as it is in the Chicago area. But why is this an issue that should matter to voters here in the Springfield area?
Well, it's really critical now because we're moving towards a new state funding formula for local schools. The state's going to provide resources to local schools based on whether the local community has community capacity. Community capacity is related to property tax value. If a community artificially lowers its property tax values, they could very well get money from the state that should have gone to other communities. So when Cook County allows the assessor to, vanish $1 billion of value from just 2 buildings in the downtown core, that now affects everybody across the state. It becomes as much the issue of the people of Cook County as the people of Sangamon County, and we all have a real stake in the outcome of accurate, fair, and clear, transparent assessments.
Is there an indication that that sort of manipulation is happening in places outside of Cook County?
Sure. If you look at generally, if you go and look at commercial sales, property sales, and compare those recent sales in your own community to assessed valuation, there's almost always an important gap. You can look at that in property tax sales, property tax assessments of homes as well. The Tribune just came out with a list of the 50 most expensive homes in Illinois. I think they were all above $3.5 million. For the information that was available on them readily, we found that they were under assessed by about 40%, and that's what's happening in our state, and that robs our local schools of adequate funding. And when I graduated from high school and college, my friends and I, we moved to where the jobs were. Today, that's not the way the American economy works. Today, the jobs move to where the highly educated young people are. If we give the world highly educated high school and college kids, the world will give us its jobs. And we're not doing that in Illinois because we underfund our schools.
Another issue where you are distinct from some of your competitors in this Democratic primary is on the issue of legalization of marijuana for recreational use. It has seemed to be a pretty popular stance among other Democratic candidates, but you have been reluctant to come all the way out in favor of full legalization.
Well, I've said we should move to legalization. I've said we should immediately make the decision to provide medical cannabis between a doctor and a patient, not have the state legislature involved at all. And I believe we need to decriminalize. The process by which we go through legalization is really important. I talked to Governor Hickenlooper in Colorado, and they made several mistakes. He thought, first, they allowed edibles to be shaped in the form of little children's candy, and little children ended up at the Children's Hospital in Denver. Second, they didn't require distributors to sell in tamper-proof or child-proof containers, and once again, little kids ended up at the Kids Hospital, Children's Hospital in Denver. Third, they haven't dealt with an issue around THC content, and today, because of great chemical engineering, they can concentrate THC content in the edibles to a degree where it now can cause an overdose. That's never been possible in the history of humankind. So we need to think in terms of what the maximum dosage should be. I think we should remove that process from the hands of corporate lobbyists. I think we should have an honest broker involved. I would ask the University of Illinois to write that legislation and to produce it within 6 months of the new governor being sworn in, so we could deal with these issues and others, take the best thinking from around the United States and bring it here to Illinois.
If those issues are resolved to your satisfaction, would you then support legalization for recreational use?
Yes, and I would defer to the experts. I don't think you want elected officials overruling scientists and doctors around a scientific and medical issue.
Another issue that's just arisen in the last couple of days, and we're going to be talking a lot about taxes at every level, from progressive income tax to the sales taxes I know you've talked about in recent days. There's also been a proposal out now to tax retirement income in the state of Illinois. Bob Divers put this forward. Daniel Biss has said it might work in the context of a graduated income tax. Your thoughts on whether Illinois should tax retirement income?
I mean, in a flat tax environment, I don't think we should do that. I think the average retiree pensioner in Illinois makes, under $20,000 a year. Do I think that's how we should pay for our government, by taxing people who make less than $20,000 a year? Absolutely not.
If we move to a graduated income tax at some point, would that be on the table then, retirement income?
I mean, I don't know what that looks like. I mean, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. So I don't know what...
But you want to move to a progressive income tax.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
If we do that under your plan,
if we means tested retirement income, if you could say, okay, people who have more than $250,000 a year in household income and have retirement income, could that be part of a progressive income tax? I think it could.
But you haven't set specific levels for that sort of thing yet, or specific rates for your progressive income tax plan.
No, and I mean, we're stymied a little bit in the fact that we don't know whether Governor Rauner will produce a balanced budget this year. So it really depends on the size of the outstanding payables that the state will leave behind. I do think that there's a lot of talk about a long-term solution, which is the opening up the state constitution for progressive graduated income tax. In the short term, I think we can move towards progressivity in the existing system and use the Massachusetts model, which I've been talking about for months, to allow us to tax the economy and allow people who make more money to pay their fair share, and do that within the context of our existing Constitution, just as the state of Massachusetts has done.
And that would be in the form of, I believe you said, tax credits. Is that how you would envision doing that?
There are a couple of techniques that they use in Massachusetts, and one of them is something akin to a low-income tax credit. So we can repatriate, I think, to the entire middle class revenue that's been taken away from them.
You anticipated my last question, which is that the governor is going to be making his budget speech in a couple of weeks and his State of the State speech in just a couple of days. What do you want to hear from Governor Bruce Rauner in that State of the State speech, first of all?
I mean, I've laid out a comprehensive jobs plan for the state of Illinois, a health care plan for the state of Illinois, an anti-violence program for the state of Illinois, government reform agenda for the state of Illinois. If he could do any one of those four things, I think it would be super helpful. But we have a situation in Illinois where we have declining taxable assets. That means a shrinking economy. And we need to respond to that. What is the plan for growing the economy, putting people to work? What's the jobs plan for our state? I believe we should invest in education and higher ed, and then a pipeline of highly educated kindergarten through high school kids that have the ability to attract businesses from around the world to our state. It's worked in Silicon Valley, in Austin, Texas, Akron, Ohio, Pittsburgh. It can work here in Illinois.
The governor says that when he delivers his budget speech, he will have a balanced budget. He will put more money into education. He will take care of bills that were accumulated in the last fiscal year that have not even been had money appropriated for them yet. And he'll start to roll back the income tax increase that was approved last year.
What? Come on. Come on. Let's call him out on that.
Let me just take one component of that. Is it realistic to think that Illinois can start to roll back or ever to roll back the income tax increase that was put in place last year?
If you have an expanding economy with more taxable assets, absolutely. If you have more people capable of being self-sufficient, if we have more people who are taxpayers, absolutely. All of our taxes can go down. That's why you invest in education. That's why we want everybody in the state to be a mini economic engine. And the way to do that is to provide great education. It has worked in other communities. It will work here. But Governor Rauner is a libertarian. He doesn't believe in a communal purpose. The original states in America, places like Massachusetts and Virginia, called themselves commonwealths. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Virginia. We've lost our communal purpose, and Governor Rauner will never bring that back.
You sound very skeptical that the governor can do all the things that he claims he'll be able to do in that budget speech.
Pay off all of our bills, give everybody a great education, reinvest in our economy, and cut our taxes? Come on. If Governor Rauner has not been able to do any of those things in the last 4 years, the last 2 years. And the idea that he's suddenly figured it out, I don't believe it.
We'll look forward to hearing your reaction after that speech is delivered in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, thanks so much for your time here. Thanks for joining us in studio. We appreciate it here in Newsmaker Spotlight.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.
And again, if people would like to learn more about your campaign, where's the website they can go to?
KennedyForIllinois.com.
Chris Kennedy, Democratic candidate for governor in the state of Illinois, here in the Newsmaker Spotlight on the News Talk 94.7 and 970 WMAY Newsfeed.